Hey there everyone, my name is Andrew and welcome back to another update on the Enterprise E project. It is update number 15 and today we're going to be starting to work on scratch building our shuttle bay. First task in doing that is going to be taking this wall right out of the saucer section here. This is part of, I'm assuming, just the supports and how the pieces molded together, but we're going to need to clear this out. Now, I could just clear out the section that I need for the opening of the shuttle bay, but I also need space for wiring to go from the saucer down through to the secondary hull. So this whole piece of plastic here has to go. So we're going to get the Dremel out. We're going to start just tearing this thing out, and there's going to be some fine work needed probably to clean it up as well. So let's get working on it. Here we have the shuttle bay area completely cleaned out. If I turn the saucer over, you can really see how that's been cleared out. Now there is a little bit of area along the top of the shuttle bay here and on the sides that I haven't really cleared out. I'm not sure if I'm going to clear out anything any further than that. I'll just have to see how it works with getting the shuttle bay scratch built in there. But that is clean and opened, which is awesome. Now I've got the shuttle bay observation lounge right here, and that piece goes on there like that. And I've got to take this piece into consideration as I figure out how I'm going to approach building the shuttle bay, because I would really like those windows to be lit, and there's quite a bit of plastic in here to clean out. So I'm considering my options at the moment. Option one is that I completely clean out the area right in here, and I use the photo etch part that I have as a brand new window frame, which actually makes it more close to the what you see in the movie when you see that really close up on the shuttle bay. So I could completely clean that out and replace the molded in parts with a brand new frame from the photo etch. The other option I have, if that doesn't work, because I've got two of these parts because I have that second kit. So I do have some wiggle room to experiment and play around with without losing the part, because I have two copies of it. The other option is that I take a mold of this part and recast it in clear, which is a bit more of an expensive route, and I'm searching online to see if I can find anybody who has already done that, but I'm not coming up with any hits on that. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to start out by trying to modify the kit part here and clean out the whole area straight through, and then see if I can use the photo etch as a new window frame on that. So that is where we are currently sitting on this project. So I've decided that the best way forward for the observation lounge above the shuttle bay is simply to recast in clear. So I'm going to take a mold of this, and actually, since I've got two of these, I'm probably going to do one side by side, so two of them, so that if I want to cast multiples at one time, I can. So I'm going to take a mold of this. I'm going to fix the detail in here so that it looks more accurate to what we see on screen, and I'll make a reproduction in clear. So to that end, I went to our local art supply store, and they always have a coupon of some sort, and the coupon this week was 40% off. So I essentially got 40% off everything. I just had to go back a couple times to get things because you can only get one item at a time. So I've got the silicone base and catalyst. I've got some modeling clay. I've got some clear epoxy resin, and I've got some mold release. So my next task is going to be creating the mold. I'm not going to show you how I'm doing it on video because I've never done this before, and it might take me a few tries, but I'll definitely show you the results. First step complete, I've got the pieces embedded into the clay so that I can create the two-part mold. I'll just turn this around so you get a good view. This is just going to be able to allow us to separate the mold into two parts. What I've done here is I've added a little bit of sprue into the mix to work as a mold key so that I've got something to keep the two parts properly aligned once I am casting the new parts. I've now taken some sheet styrene and I've created a containment box for the silicone rubber around the mold. So this is what I will pour the first layer of silicone into. So I'm gonna let this box fully set. I've glued it together and I've also put a band, elastic band around it. I've taped the bottom and I will let this fully cure with the glue, and then I will start working on pouring the first bit of silicone rubber in there. So earlier today I went ahead and I poured the silicone. It's been setting all day long, and now I get the opportunity to take the mold box off and just see kind of what we've got. So I'm gonna break into this and I'm gonna show you how it turned out. So I've taken the styrene sheets away from the edge, but the very edge feels a little bit tacky to the touch. The top is really nice, but the edges all the way around where the styrene was touching is still a little bit tacky. So I don't want to risk pulling the silicone away from the clay base until this is no longer tacky. My fear is that the areas that were touching the styrene haven't quite properly cured yet. So I'm gonna leave this overnight before I attempt to take the clay off the bottom. First half of the mold is done and it looks pretty good. I have removed one of the parts to check underneath and it looks like I got a really good clean mold. And you can see that these are the keys that I've put into it so that the two halves of the mold go together properly. So my next job is to create some pour vents and air vents. You need the pour vent to be able to pour the resin in, air vent for the air inside of the mold to escape so that you get fewer bubbles. And then I've got to pour the silicone for the second half of the mold. So this is coming along quite nicely, I think. I've got some pieces glued onto the kit parts now, and what they are is simply the tip end of a barbecue skewer. I've got them attached to the highest points on the model pieces so that once I pour the second coat of silicone in to create the second half of the mold, it'll create channels that I can pour resin into and allow air to escape. So I'll pour resin into one of these channels and air will be able to escape out the other channel, and that should help to create as bubble-free a cast of the part as possible. So next thing I need to do is create a mixture to coat the top part of the silicone mold with so that when I pour the second portion of the mold, the silicone doesn't just stick to itself here. Otherwise, it'll just create one full piece that I won't be able to separate. So there's a recipe that uses rubbing alcohol and dish soap that I've discovered that I should be able to mix up and coat onto the silicone, and once it dries, it'll just create a barrier so that the new silicone does not adhere to and bond with the silicone that's there in the first place. So that's the next thing I've got to do. The second part of the mold has just been poured. Now you can see sticking out of the mold are those pieces of skewer that are going to create the vent channels that the resin is going to be poured into and the air will escape from. So once the mold has set, it's cured, I'll remove those and those will create the open channels there. I'm going to let this sit overnight so that the silicone has a chance to cure properly, and actually it'll be probably quite a lot longer than 8 hours before I'm actually demolding this. And if it goes anything like the first half, I will need to let it sit with the outside, with the styrene pieces off, so that the rest of it can have a chance to properly cure. And then we should get into the fun part of possibly fixing the look of those windows to make them a little bit more screen accurate. And that's going to be a fun challenge. I'm not sure how we're going to do that. I'm kind of tempted just to do one side, leave the other one as is. That way, if I mess it up, at least I've still got the opportunity to cast pieces that are exact replicas of the kit part. Here are the two halves of the mold complete. I've pulled it apart and they have come out really well. It's hard to see because of the color of the mold in the video, but they've really turned out quite well. So my next job really is to put these things together and pour the first test run on the resin, and that part I'm really excited for. So here are the first two test castings of the part, and they've turned out pretty well. A little hard to see on camera just because they're clear parts. But you can see in the corner down here is a void. So it's turned out really well. It's just pointed out that there is a problem area where the resin isn't getting to in the mold. So what I'm going to do next is I'm going to do a second pouring or a second injection of the resin, and I've just marked the corners on here that are the problem corners, and then I will inject a tiny little bit, a little dab of resin in each corner before I seal up the mold. And so what that will hopefully do is allow it to be fully filled with resin. So I'm going to do that. I'm going to try to do this second casting on camera. We'll see how that turns out. So I've got my mold pre-treated with release agent. I'm going to mix up the resin and get it cast into the mold. I've also got an old stand here that I've drilled out a hole. I've got tape in the back. I'm going to do a test to see if the resin is going to be a good option for some of the larger windows. So let's get at it. I mixed up way too much last time. So let's see if I can get it right this time. Really should have put some gloves on when I started the process, just to be on the safe side. The resin I'm using, I have to mix equal parts of the two mixtures together, and I now have to mix it for 2 minutes. So I'm gonna get my phone out and time it. One of the nice things about the resin that I am using is that there's no smell that's coming from it. There's no fumes or anything like that, which really makes the process a lot nicer. Now this particular resin requires a 2-stage mixing process, and I've only got a few seconds left on the timer, and once that's done I'm going to need to pour it into the second cup and then mix it for another minute. And try to get as much transferred to the new cup as possible. And we'll mix it for 1 more minute. So it's been fully mixed. I'm just gonna grab some into my syringe. And again, I've mixed up about half of what I did last time, but it's probably still more than I need. So I've got the 2 corners that caused me some trouble. I've just got them marked so I know exactly where I'm laying down. Oh, I just laid down way too much. And I just laid down way too much again. I'm gonna need to clean that up so I don't get too much flashing. So I've cleaned that up as best I can. This is the first time that I'm putting some resin in to start with. So I'm gonna close this up and put some elastic bands around. Then, as soon as it is fully closed up, I'm gonna pour the resin into the vent holes. Let's pour some resin in. Doing it nice and slowly, so we don't get the same issue, and it starts coming out the other side. Do the same thing here. And it's out the other side. Perfect. All right, I'm gonna set that aside, and it's gonna sit now for 24 hours before I demold. Now, I want to also do a little bit of a test on this piece here. I'm going to throw some resin in. Really curious if this is a viable option for windows. There we go. I've got some resin in that. I'm gonna let that cure up for the next little while. And I wish I had something else to use the resin for, because what's left in here is just gonna go to waste. So unfortunately, I'll just throw it in one of these little disposable cups, and it'll kind of go hard like this stuff did the previous time. So I've managed to get pretty much a perfect casting off of the second go around. Now the second one though, from that mold, which still has the vent pieces attached, came out with a massive vent on the front section here. So one worked out really well, the other didn't. I've got a third casting in the mold right now. That'll sit for another 24 hours, and I'm curious to see what happens out of that. I did try to drill in an extra vent. Not sure that's actually going to work, but I tried doing the injection a little bit differently. I'm just playing around with this. I'm figuring things out, and hopefully we get 2 really nice castings off of that one, because I'd really like to get this process licked, because this opens up a world of possibilities for what I could possibly do down the road. I will show you a close-up look of these two here as well, so you get to see the one that has the massive void and the one that turned out pretty much near perfect. So here are the two parts. The one is pretty much near perfect, as I said right here. This one here has a pretty nasty void in it. If I just tilt it up here, you can also see this is what the vents look like if I'm able to pull them right out of the mold. And so they connect at a very small point at the part, which is really easy to clean off and make seamless. So yeah, so this is a usable part. It's pretty much near perfect, and I will definitely use it on my kit. I just really want to try to get the process perfected a little bit, so that's why I'm doing a third run on the mold. Since I've been working with the clear resin all week, making the duplicate part of the observation deck for the shuttle bay in clear, I thought that the resin might be a good option for these 4 front windows on the saucer section, and they've actually turned out really, really well. It's not so easy to see on camera, but they are filled in, and the resin is just slightly cloudy. I mean, if I put this paintbrush in underneath, you can see it clearly through the windows that are open, but when I come to the window that's filled with the resin, you can tell something's in there, but it's just cloudy enough that you can't see what's going on, which is exactly what I want in those windows. Now, the way I accomplished this was I took some magic tape like this, and I covered directions here, covered the windows with the magic tape, and then on the reverse side, I filled it in with resin. I'm just trying to see if you can get a angle where you can see the almost like the puddle of resin there. Anyway, so I filled it in. Oh, there we go. Filled it in from the back and got a really nice smooth finish on the front there. And it's kind of a satin type of finish. Yeah, I really do. Oh, actually, you can kind of see the light reflecting off of it there. It's really hard to capture on the camera, but I've got just a satin finish on those windows, and that's a result of the texture on the tape that was covering those windows when the resin cured against it. So that's really turned out quite well. I'm happy with the way that these windows have turned out, and it's really a great option for filling those in. So that's all the time that I have for the update this week. It's really taken a left turn at Albuquerque for me. I was planning on spending a lot of time scratch building that shuttle bay. Instead, we got into this whole new world of molding and casting. We've taken the observation deck from above the shuttle bay on the saucer section that was solid plastic, and we have recast it in clear. I've got 2 parts that are pretty good. I've got another 2 parts in the mold right now. They're coming out in about an hour. I think I've got that void issue pretty much licked. I figured out a new way of getting the resin into that particular mold in a way that it should prevent that void from happening. So I'm really interested in opening that up and seeing what we've got. Now, I've had a few people contact me wondering if I'd be willing to sell them those parts. Now, I'm not planning on setting up an aftermarket part store or anything like that, but if you are building the Enterprise E project and you would love to have one of those clear parts, you can get a hold of me personally, either through Facebook or through my website, canadianstarships.com. There is a contact page there that you can send me a message, get in touch with me personally, and we can make some sort of arrangement there. As long as you're able to cover the cost of the materials to make the part and the shipping from Canada to wherever you are, I'm sure that we can make an arrangement. I'm happy to help you out with that. But I hope that you've enjoyed this update. If you did, make sure that you hit that like button. If you're new to my channel or you haven't done so yet, make sure that you hit that subscribe button today. You'll make me very happy if you do. And while you're here, check out this recommended video and see what else is going on in the channel. But for now, this has been Andrew with the Enterprise E project update. Have a great day, everyone.